Hi, welcome to Punchline Talks, the business breakfast briefers. I'm Mark Owen, and each week I invite a panel of business experts to review the morning newspapers, find out what's happened in their own individual business and their own individual business sector, and finally, what's caught their eye in this week's Punchline. I've got a fantastic panel of guests this morning, but before I start, I'd just like to thank our fantastic sponsors, Hayswood's Accountants and Business Advisors, who we couldn't do the show without. Okay, let's meet the panel. We've got Luke Freeman. He's the CEO of MF Freeman Group, a family-owned led company specialising in residential property development, retirement schemes, commercial property. They've got around 100 staff and have a turnover of 30 million. So we'll find out all about his company and what's going on there in the Forest of Dean as well. We've got Dorian Wragg. He's a partner of Bruton Knowles Chartered Surveyors, which was 160 staff, a turnover around 14 million. He's a bit of a commercial property guru. He's also looking after a lot of the stuff that's going on at Gloucester City Centre, property of that. So we'll find out some more info about that as well. We've got Alex Cottrell. She's the manager of Gloucester Growth Hub, and she's just got a new role. So we'll find out all about the University of Gloucester and what she's doing there. And finally, never last but least, we've got Sarah Mansfield. She's the MD and co-owner of a Gloucester Food Dock, one of my favourite places in the city. £3.5 million she spent food and hospitality. And that's all moving forward. So we're going to find out from her what is going to happen next. So all exciting stuff. Okay, before we do that, let's just see what's making the headlines, courtesy of the BBC. Today, Britain sliding to recession creates another big election hurdle for Sunak, says the Financial Times. The Daily Mail, now be bold and go for the big tax cuts, Mr. Hunt. The Mirror, rush session. Quite clever that, isn't it? Said the Daily Mirror. The Daily Telegraph, Hunt to shelve 2p income tax cut. The Guardian, PM warned against cuts as UK falls into recession. The Times, don't rush to rewrite staff rights, Labour told. The Daily Express, now just do it. British Gas told to cut prices after record profit. The Metro, male fertility breakthrough, baby boom. The Daily Star, amazing talking dog of Barnsley. Don't you just love the Daily Star? Okay, right, let's move on. Let's start with you today, Alex. What have you picked out from the papers, please?
Well, from the papers, I've picked out a story, and it's a couple of days old, actually. It was I saw it in the BBC, but it is about a particular nightclub chain, Prism, I think. Apologies if I'm not saying it correctly. But they are having to shut an awful lot of their nightclubs, potentially up to 500 staff losing their jobs, which is dreadful. But the reason it caught my eye, obviously, is because there's sort of quite a strong lean in the narrative about the fact that this is all down to reducing students and that sort of stuff. But I think it's an interesting story because it really does play to the fact that businesses really do need to kind of be more agile and be in touch with customer experience, because ultimately, as much as they're sort of saying, well, it's students and the cost of living and this sort of stuff, it's the fact that actually students are doing things differently now. You know, there is not so much of this late night pub culture that there used to be. You know, students are finding different ways to entertain themselves. Obviously, things like the cost of living crisis are also impacting. Plus, students these days increasingly have to work at night. You know, they're part of that sort of industry. So it just kind of struck me, because when you actually just read the headline, it just looks like falling students. And in fact, that's not the reality behind the situation at all. And I just think, you know, obviously with my Growth Hub hat on, you know, we are seeing, and we continue to see, an awful lot of businesses who are showing absolute customer intimacy and knowing what the clients are doing, what the markets are doing, and they're pivoting accordingly. And sadly, I just saw that, and I thought this is an example of an industry, or maybe a business in particular, that isn't necessarily looking at the narrative and seeing what's going on in the bigger picture. So that's the one that I looked at.
They sort of faced a perfect storm though, with rising energy costs, and also the minimum wage has just gone up. I mean, that has a huge effect, and of course the national insurance has gone up too. So all these things together is putting a perfect storm for them, isn't it?
Absolutely, but it's about creating a new customer experience, and you know, and I hate banging on about John Lewis, but you know, John Lewis have done it. So okay, different sector, but same sort of thing in terms of retail and basket spend. You know, it's not just about stocking stuff now, it's about getting people in and having different experiences. And I think when we come on to talk about the Punchline story, you know, we can see an alternative example where someone's got it and it's worked really, really well, and just kind of pivoting what you do as a core business and taking advantage of new sort of trends and behaviours in customer activity, and particularly in this case, students.
Okay, but that's fantastic. Thanks ever so much for Alex. That's a very nice lead over to Sarah, who obviously a core market for their business at Food Doc is going to be students. But first of all, Sarah, what have you picked from the media today, please?
Yeah, so and it's in particular it's on the front page of the Times. This discussion around Labour and their desire to look at reforming some of the employment laws, and I'm not looking at all of those, but one which we come across in our sector, both in hospitality and also in our world of sort of in the past managing shopping centres and so on, is this to do with 0-hour contracts? And in my view, I think the sooner they go, the better. They dumb down the role of employment. They eliminate any aspiration for the individuals who work within a business. I think they're dehumanizing. You find people working in one place at night, going to another place, and no community that they join, no relationships that they have in that workplace. And it's just doing nothing for society, let alone the places that they work in and the jobs that they have. And I think what we see that then for the business, I think from my point of view, I think the business loses out as well. The quality of service drops down. They have no chance to develop and pull people through the business. They have no skill set within the business, so they end up contracting out all of the services that tend to be there, that those individuals can develop and learn themselves. And so I just think it's a lose-lose myself, in our experience. And I'm never quite sure why businesses are so scared of employing people and taking them in and engaging with those individuals and developing them through, because of all of the positives that come from that. And in my sense, it's damaged the relationship between employees and employers generally. And you can see that throughout a lot of business sectors, but particularly in ours, when service is so paramount. And we're now obviously out of development role, we're into managing and working with people and customers. And you really need people who are engaged with those roles, who are engaged with getting the best out of what they can do and making relationships with customers as well. So, as you can tell, I won't be sorry to see the back of them if they do go.
I'm actually always surprised that there's a lot of people who really like them. I talk to the guys from Deliveroo and things. They like to be able to have that freedom to swap jobs and roles and things like that.
And as you say,
it's a lifestyle choice.
Yeah, they do definitely have a role, depending on where people are in lives. But I think the cost to those who don't want to be engaged on employment on zero contracts and want to get more from a company, and the loss to business of developing individuals through, I think is the downside. So yeah, absolutely see there's a role for them, but I also think they're abused as well.
Without a shadow of a doubt. And I don't know how you get a mortgage. Don't know how the hell you get a mortgage if you're on a 0-hour contract. That's a different thing entirely, different conversation. Thanks ever so much for that, Sarah. Really insightful. Let's go over to you, Dorian. You've got a few problems with your sound, so we'll see how you get on. Okay, thanks ever so much for joining us today. What have you picked out from the national press, please?
I've got an article in the Times about worklessness and truancy in the workplace. And it's actually, some of it actually harks back to what Sarah and Alex were saying. It comes down to, whilst there's been a long-term increase in long-term sickness rates across the country, it's tripled over the last decade. The underlying story here is productivity and engagement. And across the country, it's something like 932,000 unfilled jobs. In Gloucestershire, we've got about 20,000 unfilled roles. And what we see from our conversations over the last 6 months especially is concern from employers about productivity, about getting people back into the workplace so they can build company culture and improve productivity. So we're seeing a definite push to get people back into the office. It's a remote working model I'm not sure is working as efficiently as it could be or should be. And we're seeing the practical side of that is office take-up is increasing, especially in Gloucester. And it really...
Sorry, you just disappeared there, Dorian. Come a bit nearer, sip a bit. Say it again. No, you're gone. You're gone. You were saying some really interesting stuff. We'll come back to you, okay? Sorry, we'll go over to Luke for a minute. Come back in again if that's okay, Dorian. Sorry about that. Luke, let's go over to you, sir. Okay, what have you picked out from the papers today?
So page 3 in the Times this morning. There's an article about a new housing development, timber homes to grow on industrial estate. And basically, there's a consent being granted, 685 houses on a derelict site. The developer is Human Nature, and they're promoting the fact that they're using hempcrete, which is they claim is a sustainable alternative to concrete. As I think a lot of people are aware, concrete is a huge contributor to greenhouse gases and the construction sector as a whole. So that's I think that's an interesting article, an interesting direction. One, that it's using sustainable materials such as the hempcrete and timber, and also the fact that it's good that they're turning a brownfield site previously developed into a new housing scheme for the much needed houses to solve the housing crisis. Last year we built.
Do you think this is the way it's going to go forward, Luke? Obviously, being in the housing market yourself, can you see it being more timber-led, more hemp? Or
Yeah,
is it
so we're using timber framed housing. We have been for the last 15 years now. They're quicker to erect, they're more sustainable. Obviously, it's renewable material that using the timber. It's better insulation values to meet the new requirements. So yeah, we've adopted sustainable materials, but the industry needs to do more, and I do think it's the direction. And I would welcome, encourage whichever party get into power to actually look at cutting stamp duty to actually support developers such as us building EPC rated houses, so they're more energy efficient, putting solar panels on and heat pumps, which we're doing. And if they could cut which is a bit of, it's extra cost at the moment. We hope to get that back in value proposition from our customers, and they recognise that. But it would be more helpful if the government were to make stamp duty cuts to encourage more developers to do that.
Okay. Have you picked out another story? Well, as well.
Not in the national newspapers. I've got. So there's a bit of more of a local story, which has been covered in the press. Like Hartpury College, they're setting up it's Marcus Morley Smith working with John Turville. They're looking at, which is related to this article. They're setting up Ecoversity UK at Hartpury Tech Box Park, which we've done quite a bit of work with Hartpury College, and we're speaking to Marcus and John about that. So yeah, that's all good stuff as well.
Okay, all some stuff that Hartpury are doing at the moment is very, very interesting and groundbreaking. Of course, Martin Clunes as well has just joined the as Chancellor. Okay, we're going to go back over to Dorian. Thanks, Luke. Dorian, hopefully we can hear you properly now again. Can you just finish what you were saying?
All right, yeah, I hope you can hear me now. Yeah, so from my perspective, being in the property world, if we're going to get people back into the office, we need really good quality offices to support that return to the workplace, and that's where things like the Forum, Golden Valley are really important. They are, to my mind, key to driving this economy forward, especially locally.
I think the big problem about people working remotely and from home, and it's been shown, is that unfortunately a lot of people have been doing side hustles, and they're not concentrating on their business. They're not being, they're being paid by companies, but they're side hustling. And it's very difficult to know what people are doing. I'm not saying everybody's doing it, of course they're not. But there's that level of trust that you need. And I think that is slowly being broken and eroded by, a small minority of people. Would you say that's the case, Dorian? Is that one of the reasons?
Yeah, I think so. It's transparency, isn't it? It's very hard from my perspective. I've got a team of about 29 people I run. It's very hard to know what everyone is doing all the time. And you don't want to micromanage people. That's not the way that we run business. But yeah, it's easier when you have people in the office. We're lucky to a degree. We've been in the office right the way through, because what we do, we need to communicate a lot. But I know there are some businesses, especially in the tech area, which we are very strong in this area, that they don't like coming into the office. So it's a real issue.
Let's be honest, techies like to be working on their own. That's part and parcel of the people that do the job. Okay, a bit like designers and creatives. Okay, thanks ever so much for that, Dorian, and great to have you back. By the way, let's go over to you, Alex. And you got a new role at the University of Gloucestershire. Obviously, you work at the hub there. Your shiny building behind you. Can you tell us about it, please?
Yeah, so obviously I've worked with the university since 2016, and obviously I've been sort of involved with the Gloucester Growth Hub, ultimately then leading to managing that Growth Hub, which has been a privilege and an honour. But obviously there's really exciting things happening at the university at the moment. Anyone who has been to any of the briefings with our new Vice-Chancellor, Claire Marchant, will see that there's a real energy and a real focus in terms of the role that the university plays in place, locally within Gloucestershire, and, a huge amount of effort going into kind of student experience. So as part of some of the really positive changes that are happening at the moment, I've taken on the role of Head of External Relationships, which I'm really excited about. My sort of role within the Growth Hub still is very firmly at the heart of that. So I'm still responsible for the Gloucester Growth Hub team. But what it means is that I'll be getting out far more in terms of kind of external stakeholders, looking at those partnerships and relationships, sort of saying, look, how can we really squeeze as much out of this as possible as a win-win for the institution and also for partners. So a busy job, because we're really lucky that we have so many partners and relationships at the university across all sorts of different aspects. But yeah, literally I'm in week 2, so don't ask me anything too difficult, but really positive. So I'm really excited about it.
Well, I've always loved your enthusiasm for the Growth Hub and for the university. So fair play and good luck with that. And I'm sure we'll work very closely with you, obviously.
We will.
So thanks for that. Okay, we go over to you, Sarah, and you, of course, you're very linked to the university and Artbury because you're going to rely on the student business, I would assume, for the food doc. Can you tell us what's happening next, please?
Yeah, not just a student business, I'd like to say.
And people like me, because I've been there quite regularly, so I've spent a small fortune already in the hot kettle.
Yeah, so no, it's exciting for us now because obviously we're out of building phase and we're open and trading, and we're going to, there is a sequence of businesses fitting out their spaces that we're giving them and then seeing them trade, and it's great. So we have 6 or 7 open now, and we're already seeing fitting out. We've had a little bit of a slow fit out for 2 businesses, a Lotte and Chuck Burger, but they're just about there. We'll be seeing them in the next few weeks. First of all, Chuck Burger you'll see open, and then a Lotte, the Mexican, will follow that. Same business owner, he'll be great. There'll be very, very good products and brilliant businesses to go in and see. And then following that, there will be Strip Steak, who will be opening up, and all of those are on the quayside. So that'll open up the majority of that quayside elevation. And I was there, yesterday, and there was a little bit of sun yesterday as well, a tiny bit of sun. It's just lovely standing there on the deck and listening to people talk and enjoy the view and so on. So, we're into trading, more fitting out, and then in the next month or so, we'll be announcing some more names. We've got just 1 or 2 more spaces to fill, and those names, we're talking to people already, so we'll let you have those names as well.
And what about the space that you've got upstairs? Obviously, from the hot kettle, I know I've been through the door upstairs, and that half is not developed yet. Have you got any more news on that?
That's one of the names, hopefully, we will be coming back to you with in the near future.
Okay, and I know you give us an exclusive sometimes, Sarah. So there we go. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Thanks ever so much for that. Great. It's a great place. Great place. I'm really enjoying it. And you are right. It's got a real buzz to it. You must be well pleased. Can I ask you very honestly, is there a particular trader that's doing really well?
Actually, they're all doing well. It's really interesting. I think there's a real buzz. There was a real buzz around the pizza, Bellamere at #1 when they opened, because they were the first one open. Hetty and Holies and Scandi on the deck because the sun's out there. There's the real buzz around those as well. So it's very hard to pick out a particular business because they're all what we're aiming to do is to curate a series of offers that sit comfortably alongside each other. And in that, if we're getting that right, then they'll all be doing their own thing well at their own particular time onto their own particular customer base. So hopefully we are.
Okay, well, fantastic. And I know that Dorian owes me a few beers, so hopefully he'll take me to the hot kettle. Dorian, that leads me very nicely over to you, sir. Okay, obviously, a lot of people don't know this, but you're one of the main commercial agents, so we say, for King's Walk and all that area. How's it going now? Because it's really exciting development recently, isn't it? You've let a number of places, the old Primark building. Can you just explain about that, please?
I'd love to claim responsibility for that. It wasn't me. But there has been a lot of activity.
Sorry, I thought it was you. You bigged it up, mate.
There has been a lot of activity. I think it's
Oh no, you've gone again. You were just in the prime. No, your internet, wherever you are, it's not very good, mate. You're going to have to
taking
come.
that off.
Oh, that's better.
Does that work? Is that
That
clearer?
works. That works. Okay,
I'll do that. I've sacrificed the image for the content. Yeah, I mean, Gloucester is really, really strong. Across all sectors, actually, there's a very strong message getting across the country. We've had a number of London investors who are now actively looking in Gloucester. You've got guys like Picton's who are in there on the industrial side, who are investing in Madleys and Mill Place. Obviously, Peel, they're investing down the Peel Centre and the Reef Scheme. So, really strong development going across the country, and that's bringing some top quality occupiers. Pup Noodle have moved in. We've got these other leisure operators that are coming into the city centre, replacing retail, which is struggling to happen. We're seeing that across the country. So we're seeing really a revival of the city centre, and I think what's positive is whereas everything was happening down the docks, we're now seeing sort of reverse polarity and happening in the city centre, which is great. It diversifies the offering, brings more people into the city centre, and creates more energy, more reason for people to come in. So the challenge, I think, for us all now in the property sector is to link up what's happening with the docks with what's happening up at King's Square. So there's a cohesive journey through the city. We've got great public transport links now with a bus station and train station, and we just need more of the same. We've got some really interesting.
You just broke up there, and I'm gonna stop you there anyway, Dorian. So no, thanks ever so much for your right. It's very, very exciting in Gloucester at the moment. All we've got to do is keep our fingers crossed that something nice is going to happen at the forum. Okay, let's go over to you, Luke. Luke, obviously it's a family business, it's a group of companies. Can you tell us about FM Freeman, please?
MF Freeman Group, yeah. We've got our main divisions are contracting, development, and plant hire. And we've been going for since 1966. I'm second generation, and last year we built just under 100 houses, which was good for us. We've been building EPC A-rated houses mostly on our development, so solar panels and heat pumps. We're building at we just finished the development at Union 7 of 82 plots. We've got about 20 left there. The market slowed down a bit, but they're still selling, which is good. We've got a new site in Found Hope, which we've been building on for the last 18 months. Nice village in Herefordshire. Just finished a scheme, 32 units in St Wenners, another village in Herefordshire. And we're building next to the SAS camp in Hereford, 67 units. We also do contracting. We've got a £9 million turnover contracting division, which does our own groundworks for our own housing schemes. But we also do contracting industrial buildings, roads and sewers, infrastructure. One of the articles I picked out, the Punchline, Berry Hill 5 Acres Community Hub is got planning on the Tuesday. So like I said before, we're hoping to do some work on that. Can
I just stop you there? Does it make you slightly annoyed when there's a big, levelling up fund that was going to obviously Berry Hill there, and the company that actually demolished it was from Birmingham or from?
I do think like the construction industry. Many years ago, we used to work more local. Like all our jobs would have been in the Forest of Dean and around that area. But the whole industry seems to, I think it's since the internet and people don't actually have those local connections. They're connected all over the country. Then they tend to travel further for their work, which is, with the cost of the effect on the planet with all the pollution and the cost of fuel, it doesn't really make any sense. You should be like using local contractors to do the work locally, which to be fair to the council and the contractors. That's what everybody's trying to do. And yeah, so but yeah, it makes perfect sense to work on your doorstep rather than travelling further afield.
Yeah. And how is the housing market at the moment? Is it still pretty buoyant? There's been a thing, obviously, with the cost of mortgages going up.
Yeah, so last year was the market was poor for sales, but since January, inquiries have picked up. Some good news forecast on interest rates coming down, and we've seen a real increase in activity in inquiries since January. But yeah, we are carrying a bit of stock because the market has slowed down. But that's the game. You've got to be prepared for that when you do speculative housing development.
And just very quickly, what about the prices of the actual building materials? Has that settled now? Because at one point, just after the pandemic, it was crazy. You couldn't get a grip on the sort of prices that was going on.
Yeah, it's been a real problem for construction companies the last couple of years, and unfortunately, that's catching up with a few companies because they price jobs and on assumption of cost of materials, and we've seen massive inflation, but that's really leveled off now. And in some cases, like a sheet of mesh, I think our commercial team said yesterday, I think a sheet of mesh, reinforcement mesh for concreting, I think it's half of what it was at its peak. So prices are coming down, and I think that's driven by partly demand. I do think there was a lot of people taking advantage of the fact people couldn't get materials, and it's caused that inflation, but it is leveling out now.
Oh, good. Thank goodness for that. And by the way, I think I was wrong. It wasn't Birmingham. It was Herefordshire company that did the
Not too bad then.
Before someone from the Forest of Dean Council comes over to me, and they will. Anyway, okay, thanks ever so much for that. Give us a good chat about that, Luke. Okay, that's kind of wrapping up the end of the show, really. But we're going to do, before we go, is the pick of the punchlines. Alex, what have you got for us, please?
I chose the story about the We Do Play team opening the VR studio. Sorry, Dorian, because I know that was your story as well, in the middle of the city. But the reason that I picked that one is because I think it plays to the point that actually everyone's made on this panel today, which is about, amazing things happening in Gloucester. This whole idea of connectedness as well. Like, for example, I'm delighted to say that, we're really looking forward to coming along and working with the Food Doc as the Growth Hub, helping them with some training stuff, which show, what Sarah was saying about, investment in staff and development. So I just think it's a really good example, similar to, is it Roxy Lanes in Cheltenham? I should know. But, this whole idea of just understanding that the nighttime economy isn't what the nighttime economy used to be. People want to do things differently. And I just think it's a brilliant example for Gloucester, because I think this is the first one in the UK. They've chosen Gloucester to do it. And just understanding that, trends and customer behaviours change a bit. So great news for the nighttime economy, great news for the high street.
Yeah, I mean, Laser Quest, you're going to have a mini golf thing in Gloucester. You've got the little skate thing that's going skateboard and keys. Lots of great stuff, really is. And we want to do different things now, not just get absolutely hammered as we used to do when we were young. Anyway, that's talking about myself, obviously, being ex-forces. And funny enough, I was stationed in RAF Hereford near this SAS base, by the way, Luke. Anyway, moving on. Sarah, what have you picked out from this week's punchline, please?
Yeah, so it's a little bit on the theme as well. So there was something earlier in the week about University of Gloucester doing short courses for years 10 and 12, which I thought was great. It's so important for a city to have a vibrant university at its core, and gaining the right students, and then retaining the students, and how the students are retained and held in the city, opportunities to start up their own businesses, work within businesses. We have a University of Gloucester student on our team. And I think it's vital. We've got the city centre campus opening, which obviously will add a huge amount to the city centre. So I just thought it was a lovely story. Or going out, getting them young, as they say, and attracting the best of the best, which is lovely.
Couldn't agree more. Thanks so much for that. Okay, Dorian, what have you picked out from this week's punchline, please?
Similar vein, slightly downbeat. Retail insolvency is expected to increase this year. Been a tough 4 year for retailers, 4 years for retailers. We're seeing that even the likes of Superdry are struggling. Interest rates, food costs, material costs have gone up, energy costs. And one of the biggest things we picked up in the G First retail group is employment. They just can't get staff to go into the sector. We're hoping colleges might do something with that. But yeah, so that's my story. Big year for retailers.
Okay, just very quickly, do you think Superdry will make it at the end of the year?
Yeah, you've got to be an optimist, haven't you? He's a smart chap. He's done it before.
Okay, just got to ask. Fingers crossed for him. Okay, thanks ever so much for that, Dorian. Luke, what have you picked out?
Well, I mentioned the one Berry Hill 5 Eggs Community Hub is all go, so we've probably covered that one. The other one I thought was positive for the housing crisis, positive for us because Bromford secures £75 million worth of funding. That funding is actually, the headline is for doing refurbishment, but in the article it's mentioned the £450 million worth of funding they've got to build new houses, which is positive news for us because we work with RSLs building houses. So yeah, that's a good article. The other one I thought was interesting was it just demonstrates the challenge of probably the whole country and developers building houses. The Stroud draft local plan's been put on hold, which is causes it. I guess the plan needs to be right, and the people who put it on hold, they've got some concerns about it, which is fine. But for developers, we need to be able to get land allocated, get consents, and get building. I think in the 60s you could put a planning application in a number of weeks, get consent, and be starting very soon afterwards. And now it literally takes longer to get the planning than it does to actually build the houses now.
I hear that all the time, and that is a story that's going to run and run. By the way, of that Stroud planning without shut down. My pick of the week, it has to be actually the return of Martin Searle, who wants to be the next police and crime commissioner. Watch this space. It's going to be Martin versus Chris in the ring to see who's going to knock 10 bells of stuffing out of each other to become the next police and crime commissioner. I think it's going to be a bit of a nasty fight. I hope not, because they're two lovely guys. And we'll see who's going to win. Anyway, and that is all we have time for today. I'd just like to say a big thank you to my wonderful panel for joining the show. Thank you to all of you for watching. If you like the show, please like, share, and subscribe. And also to our wonderful sponsors, Hazelwood's accountants and business advisors. And that's all we've got time for. We won't be back next week. We'll be back the following week. Thanks all. See you again next week. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
That's a very subdued bye.